All right. So, what is your job exactly? So, what do you do inside your job?
Okay. I work for the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and for many years I was a health physicist. And a health physicist is somebody who works in radiation safety to help ensure that working conditions at places where radioactive materials are used are safe, and to ensure that workers are protected and that the amount of radiation that people are exposed to while they're working is as low as can be reasonably achieved.
Okay. Awesome. And then, so how did you get started into that field? Like, how did you enter that job?
Um, I first got involved in doing environmental sampling around nuclear power plants in Florida. There are 3 nuclear power plants in Florida, or there were at the time. One of them has recently closed. And my job was to go around and collect samples at those power plants of water, air, fish, plant life, all kinds of things. And we took those samples back to the laboratory, and we measured them to make sure that the plants were not releasing excessive amounts of radioactive material.
Okay.
And
And what education would you like the minimum education that you think would be required to even enter some type of like position that you work with or your job or?
okay, for us in health physics, there are a couple of ways you can go about doing this. There are degree programs at a few universities where people can learn health physics. It's a combination of physics, biology, chemistry. It's really very interesting, but it's a interesting combination of hard sciences all mixed together. Um, I have a degree in microbiology and a minor in chemistry and a minor in math and a minor in physics. It's a long story how I got all those minors, but it was basically my background in biology that got me started in the business. And then as I started to become involved in other programs, first in the sampling program, then looking at radioactive materials in drinking water, and then doing x-ray safety in hospitals and in factories, and then looking at the safe use of radioactive materials in universities, factories, and hospitals. That's where I learned all the math and the skills and applications that I'm going to demonstrate today.
All right. And last question. Besides like the problem you're working on, what application does trig have in your job? Like, what would you use it for?
Well, trigonometry can be used for all kinds of things, especially in physics. One of the things that you use it for is well, you use it for here for trying to determine the exposure that somebody would get from a length of pipe that contains radioactive material. That's the problem I'm going to solve for you today. But other problems is like, for example, if you have a radiation source on one side of a wall, say at a hospital, and you have a waiting room or people working or something like that on the other side of the wall, what you need to do is you need to be able to predict what the radiation doses is going to be to people here over here on the other side of the wall. And as the radiation comes through the wall, it interacts with matter in the wall to shield it and to slow it down, and some of the radiation is going to go in different directions. And you use trigonometry to help predict what directions it will go and what the resultant dose rates would be to people over here on this side of the wall where you're trying to protect them.
Okay. And is there any additional related information or advice to a high school student, a high school math student that you would like to provide?
I think if I was going to give any advice at all, it would be the advice that I wish I had taken myself, which is that if you don't understand something, ask. Ask until you understand. If you don't get it, I'm willing to bet that at least a third of the people in the classroom don't get it. So be courageous, put your hand up and say, wait a minute, I don't understand. Could you show that to me again? You're going to get this many times. You're going to get this through repetition. Either you're going to hear the teacher talking about it again, or you're going to hear somebody else explaining it to you again. But you might hear it two or three different times, 2 or 3 different ways, and it'll be that third time where all of a sudden it all comes together. Somebody explains it just in a slightly different fashion. Your teacher tries another way of explaining it to you, and it just all comes together. The light bulb goes off. And if you don't do that, if you don't understand it, you're going to fall behind. So I would encourage you to be what I wasn't when I was in school, and that would be brave enough and courageous enough to stick up your hand and say, please explain it to me again. Either during class, after school, before school, but somehow or another, get it explained so you don't fall behind.